Hey there, and welcome back. So last time we took a look at the theme.json file, as well as some of the styling we have to do to get this theme ready to go. Today we're really going to get into the fun part of creating block patterns. If you don't know what block patterns are, basically they're a collection of blocks that you can arrange and then save in a file in the theme, and that grouping of blocks can be used on any post, page, template, custom post type, wherever in the block editor. It's a really powerful tool, and once you get the hang of building block patterns, it's really cool and really easy. So today we're going to take a dive into those block patterns. Before we get started, if you want to see more videos in this series on creating a block theme or more videos on WordPress development or web development in general, be sure to hit the subscribe button and ring the bell for notifications. Now let's get started. Okay, so before we get too far along with the block patterns, I do want to circle back a bit and talk about sort of the structure of this theme and the files that you see when you go and see the GitHub repository, which is linked to in the description below. So really it looks fairly similar to any theme that you might have developed or looked at. All of our assets like images, CSS, JavaScript, web fonts are here. And I'm just putting them all really in the source file, and then when it compiles, we just compile two files that we use. Config and gulp have some build tools. You don't really need to dive into them if you don't want to touch any of them. This included is actually sort of a holdover from what we had to do previously with block patterns, which I'll talk about here in a bit. But you don't need to worry about that too much. I do kind of have it still in the starter theme, which I have also linked to down in the description below. I think that's a great place if you want to put things like blocks, like custom blocks for your theme. Include them in sort of the included file. Languages for the languages or translations that we have. And then parts is where you have the different template parts, like your footer, your header, and we have a sidebar, which we'll get to later on down the road. And then we have patterns, and this is where we're going to be mostly today, is in this patterns directory. Before WordPress 6.0, you had to use PHP to register your block patterns. And we'll discuss that here in a little bit. But now we can use this patterns directory in the top level of our theme directory to basically just register all of our block patterns right in the theme. We don't have to worry about anything in the functions.php or any of that. So that's where these go. Styles, we're going to get to this towards the end of the series. But if you have different sort of theme styles, like different colors or dark mode, this is where that would go. And then finally, we have the templates directory. This is for things like the 404, the archive, the author, those sorts of things. And we'll get to that really next time when we start to really build out the theme and the different templates. And then finally, you obviously need your functions.php file, which we'll dive into here in a bit with block patterns. You do have your style.css. As you can see, it's empty, it's a placeholder. All of our styles on the front end are being loaded here in the global min CSS file. All of them for the back end are the editor style. So just something real simple, and then obviously the theme.json. And then you screenshot, and then for the theme directory, you need readme files. So basically that's just an overview of the structure. I should have done this last time, but it makes maybe a little bit more sense, especially now that we dive into the patterns. Now with the block patterns, the first thing we need to do is come over here to the functions.php file. Here I'm removing the support for the core block patterns just because some of the styling might not look quite as great with our theme, and we don't necessarily want our users to be able to use them. They can grab them from the block patterns directory on WordPress.org if they want to. The other big thing we're doing here is we're registering our block category or block pattern categories. So I have one, as you're going to see, we're going to have a bunch of different block patterns for all the various templates. Like there's a 404 block pattern. We have a bunch of callouts, which I'll go walk through how I created those. Because they're super simple and a super easy way to sort of dive into block patterns if you haven't done them before. And then I have one for columns, footer, header, a grid query, or the list query. We'll dive into those a little bit more about how I built those, layout, search, sidebar, all of those. So we register them here, and then when we dive into the how to create block patterns, you'll see where we add those so that our different block patterns go into the correct categories. But again, all of this code, if you want to look at it and copy it and change it or whatever is in the GitHub repository linked to in the description below. So before we actually build out a block pattern, I want to walk through sort of the structure of the file for a block pattern. Now, as I mentioned earlier, now with WordPress 6.0, all we need to sort of say, hey, WordPress, here's a block pattern for themes, is to just have a patterns directory in the top level of your theme directory, and then just place it here, and then you just need this code right up here. Now, before you go too far along, I do want to say that this process is different if you're adding block patterns through plugins. You still have to go through the old way, and I've linked to that down in the description below as well. It's roughly the same, but there are enough differences. If you were building block patterns for themes in like WordPress 5.9 or before, it's basically that way. And if you're completely new to block themes or block patterns, you might just want to read over the documentation for them. But really all we need in the header is the title, and then the slug. It can be anything, to make it easy and to make it sort of stand out from other themes or other plugins, have sort of the name of the theme. This right here will all get changed to the actual slug for the theme, like when I run the bundle function, when I'm bundling the theme together. And then finally we have the categories right here, and that's where we talked about when we built the categories. We take the slug and we place it here. And viewport width, you can do sort of whatever. Don't really have to mess with that too much. And then finally, this is where we paste the HTML that we create in the block editor. As you'll see here in a second, this is where we're going to place that, and that's how we can see it on the front end. Okay, so I'm going to create a new callout block pattern. We're going to do it completely from scratch, and just to walk you through how to create a block pattern, and then move on, and we'll do one with a grid blog post query, which is going to be a little bit more complicated. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and I'm going to create a new file. And then I'm going to copy this from up here. So to create a new block pattern, you can I highly recommend it doing through the block editor. You can do either like a new post or page. It doesn't really matter. You're not going to save this. So the first thing I like to do is to just create a group as sort of a container block. And again, if you're sort of new to the block editor, you can use slash, and then you can search for different blocks. It makes it real simple. And then, so for our block, we're going to go ahead and make it full width. And then with the group block, you can just, say the content, or like the normal block width within the group is going to be certain pixels. And then if that block is aligned wide, it's another certain pixels. Or you can just inherit what's set in the theme.json file, which we're going to do here. And then, let's see, we're going to add a little bit of padding on either side. So I like to do about 50 for the top, 15 on the sides, like so. And then let's give it a what background? Do like a light blue background. And then any text within that is going to be this black. So that way we don't get accessibility issues, because that is something that you should always care about. All right, so with our callout, we're going to have text and description here on the side, and then a button over here. So we're going to choose this one, and then we're going to align it wide, like so. And then we'll add a heading. And then we're going to add some text, and I'm just going to use lorem ipsum text because it's super simple and super easy. All right, so now we want to come over here and we're going to add a button block. And this would link off to whatever we want it to be. And we can make the width, I kind of want to make it like that. We can vertically align it. Actually, here we go. Okay, that. Oh, here we go. Align our contents middle like that, and then we'll jump back. Now, one thing with block patterns, as you'll see here in minutes, when you insert it in, everything becomes editable. When you edit it, you don't change the actual block pattern. So like you can repeat block patterns and they can be different. You can change the content without like sort of destroying the content within that block pattern for other uses. There used to be something called reusable blocks, where if you edited that in a page, it would change it everywhere else. That's not the case here. So you don't have to worry about it. And then when we insert it in, we would add in a link here. No sweat. And really, this is our block pattern. And then over here, we're going to give it sort of this CSS class of like so. So then we can get it in different ways or whatever in the CSS if we needed to. So now we have the code for this pattern. We can copy it, Command C if you're on a Mac. Or you can come here and hit copy, and we see we copied it. Now we could post it in to that theme.json or this file right here. We can post it in here. However, there's a bit of an issue, and it's something that's a little bit tricky if you don't know about it beforehand. This doesn't quite work perfectly. Instead, we have to unescape the string in order for it to work. Now, how I do it is I found this online from Codebeautify, and it's worked perfectly for me. Just paste in what we copied, hit unescape, then I'm going to grab the resulting string, copy it, and then I'm going to repaste over it, hit save, and now we should be good to go. Why this matters, I'm not entirely sure. It might have been, I was testing this with 5.9 and there was issues. They might have fixed it with 6.0, I'm not sure, but at this point, it's what I do. I'm used to it. I've linked to that site down in the description below as well. Super easy to use, very intuitive. So anyway, now we have our block pattern built, and if we were to like save this. Okay, so now I've reloaded the page, and we should be able to, when we come to patterns, you can see all the other pattern categories. We come over to callouts, and here is our test pattern, and we can hit that, and there we go. If you want, we have the one with the black background. You can paste there. For the default ones in this theme, I've just made them sort of the normal width, not the wide align. But you can obviously, as we come in here, can totally just do that, and it's like before, and then maybe we come here to columns, and boom. And you can do this with any block pattern, and it's a lot of fun. I've noticed, especially sort of now working on more of a premium portfolio theme with FSC, is just the build process is so much quicker because I'm not having to worry about writing PHP and then writing CSS and then maybe some JavaScript and then like hitting save and reloading page and like, oh, that's not quite right. Doing the process again, like, oh, that's still not quite right. Instead, I can see it all right here visually in the editor, hit copy, paste it in a file, good to go. It's absolutely wonderful. Okay, so before we go for today, I do want to go through something more advanced with block patterns. And that's sort of the query grid that I have set up with this theme as an option for you to use. You can either use sort of the list view or the grid view. So I'm going to create the grid view here. It's a little bit more complicated than like the list view. So like before, I'm going to create our group. I like to make things full align, and then add in normal padding. All right, so we're going to come in here and we're going to get the query loop, and we're going to start basically blank. And then sort of by default, the query loop gives you a couple of options. You can do it list like this or grid. And then we can set the number of columns. Also with the query loop, we can choose the post type, whether it inherits it from the template or whatever. You can also show the number of items per page. So we want 12, and we can see that those loaded here. And that is one of the trickier spots. It's sometimes if you click off of something, it can be a little bit tricky to get to click back into it. And then we're going to make this white align. Okay, so now I really want to start basically over. I don't want anything here. All right, that's not going to let me. And this is a bit tricky. Things kind of happen. Okay. You can't quite start completely from scratch. You got to start from somewhere. So instead, we're going to get the featured image for the post, and we're going to put that over top the title. Actually, something I want to do. We're going to do another group, and within that, we're going to post featured image like that. And then our heading, actually. Again, but you can see how easy this is. I'm changing my mind, but it's not super challenging to have to go back and redo anything. So I want a group. You can also see how while I'm doing that, it's changing every other version right there, which is really cool. Okay, now we're good. So now I want the post title, like so. And then do post category, and then post excerpt. And then instead of that for the read more, there is a read more block now that we can, we still kind of unfortunately have to do things a little bit trickier. Not the biggest fan of it. I do wish that would get this block, the read more block would get more options, make it more like a button, because we can't quite do that yet. But whatever. We're gonna like that. And then finally, we get a little bit crazy. So the background for this is going to be sort of the primary in text like that. And then we do need a little bit more padding over here. So we're going to like that. And then we'll need to come in here, update sort of these colors like so. We are going to need a little bit more. I'm not wanting the background I wanted. There we go. Like so, and then we're just going to go back up and we'll add padding to the bottom. Like that. Now we have a grid view for our block pattern, and we can come back here, go all the way out. You can hit copy, do this, and unescape it, and we can copy it into the file, and we'll be able to add in sort of the same exact view for listing out our post wherever we want, and they can be on the archive.html, the index.html, author, category, wherever. And I have a few of them sort of here in the block pattern section already. And you can go in anywhere to any of the files, customize it, change it to be whatever background color you want. Just super simple, and really allows users to customize how their website looks. And once you master the art of creating block patterns, you can really do anything you want in so little time compared to what we used to have to do. So it's just a great tool that we have now as theme developers, and I highly encourage you just to go around and play with it. If you don't want to use this theme or the starter theme that I have, go out and get 2022 and check it out. So that's it for today. Do you have any questions about block patterns or any block theme questions? Be sure to leave them all down in the comment section below and I'll do my best to answer them. Again, if you want to see more videos in this series and more videos on WordPress development or web development or whatever, be sure to hit the subscribe button and to ring the bell for notifications. But that is it for today. Thank you for watching and I will see you next time.